or afternoon, wherever you may be. My name is Roger Rinker, and this is the next in a series of interviews that we're doing with folks from the human resources, business leadership, and learning and development communities. And the series is called #KeepLearningStrong. And our goal around Keep Learning Strong has been to promote learning and the professionals that make it happen. And we certainly have one of those professionals here with us today, John Haynes, that we'll introduce more formally in just a moment here. But just as a little bit of our own advertising, if you will, we ask you to consider joining the community. And that community you can access via either LinkedIn, Twitter, or our website at innovationsolutions.com, #KeepLearning or Keep Learning Strong. So with that, just a very quick introduction. We've done a number of these now, and each time I'm asked to kind of introduce myself, I feel less and less comfortable. So I keep it shorter and shorter each time. My name is Roger Rinker, currently in the professional consulting industry, spent 30 plus years as a HR/talent management leader for a couple of large global companies. And then Candace, a moment on yourself.
Yep, Candace McGlenn, same as Roger, in the consulting industry and talent development, and a little over 10 years in the industry, and just happy to be here.
Thanks, Candace. And as I alluded to previously, very excited. You know, this guest that we have today, Mr. John Haynes, is a very respected and charismatic learner that I've had the pleasure of working with, and I describe him as an ally. He's been an ally throughout my career, but during the time that we worked together, he was very much an ally, and someone that when I left that organization, you know, I've missed, and we've made a vow that we'll try to stay in touch as time goes on. So we couldn't be happier to have John with us here today. And as usual, John, you know, kind of grabbed our attention right out of the gate with his quote, which, you know, I think Candace and I talked about. We absolutely admire this quote. John, can you tell us a little bit about the quote, and then we'll move into a little bit more about your self-introduction.
Very nice. So thank you, Roger and Candace. I'm just excited to be here today and to be with you. I'm just so proud of you both and your leadership and just who you are as professionals and people. You know, I would be stupid and remiss if I didn't say such a thing. So thank you for the opportunity right off the top. But this quote means everything to me. And it says, "And the time came when the risk to remain tight in a bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom." And this to me says it's just an imperative to grow and to learn. And that's the way that I try to live my life personally and professionally. And when I'm coaching leaders, when I'm advising leaders, when I'm looking at org structure, when I'm thinking about, you know, future versus current state of things, you know, it does get painful to stay where you are. And so what I do is encourage leaders to continue to grow. And that means formal learning. That means experiential learning. That means exposure to different concepts and different people. That means building allies. That means building mentors so that you can continue to expand on the base that you've been given. And the converse of that is when you stay in that comfort zone, when you learn to become desensitized to that pain, then I think you start dying, both as a person and you start dying as an organization. And that's exactly what I don't want for my leaders and these organizations that I'm attached to. I want us to continue growing, because then you realize the fullness of your potential and your purpose, both as people and as organizations. So that's why this quote is so near and dear to me.
Thank you, John. That's very, very thoughtful. And I know you to be someone that will continue to challenge others to grow as well as yourself and your family and friends around you. One of the things that I admire about you, always have. With that, you know, that was a little tease into a little bit about who you are. Why don't you do the deep dive into telling us a little bit about who you are, your background, and what you're up to these days.
Yeah, back to that quote. I've been known as that pain sometimes that makes people grow. I've been known as one of the probably best and worst compliments I've ever gotten is I'm an instigator. And so
Yes.
I accepted it fully. And I'm glad to have that title, but I'm John Haynes III. Family and friends call me Trey. And born in 1971 in Norfolk, Virginia, and grew up in Gaithersburg, Maryland. And went to Hampton at first, Hampton University in Virginia, majored in electrical engineering for 4 complete years until I discovered you're never going to be an engineer, and failed out of school a bunch of times, but just had the blessing of never having to go home. And I think that was the making of, where I am today. I walked into the City Hall of Norfolk, Virginia, paying my car taxes, and I had on shorts, t-shirt, and flip-flops, and walked into the City Hall of Norfolk to pay those car taxes. And when I was done, something said, go ask for an internship in HR. And I walked around the corner. And when I met with Mrs. Mary Williams back, 25 or more years ago, she hired me on the spot. And what I really wanted to do was coach leaders when they had people problems. And that's who I was as a kid. My family always brought problems to me, and I solved them. People much more my senior, I was giving advice to at a young age. And so why not do this as a profession? And HR was the best way to do that. So I've had the blessing of, working with leaders across the spectrum in government contracting, engineering, architecture, high tech, startup, as well as the industrial industry with Johnson Controls. And today I am corporate HR director for Johnson Controls. We moved the family from Bowie, Maryland to Milwaukee, Wisconsin about a little over a year and a half ago now. And so I get the fortune of supporting, a $24 billion company and 3 of our C-suite leaders as their primary HR business partner. So I support legal, global commercial, sales, and our IT organization and the leaders of those organizations as their strategic HR business partner. And I'm also a leadership and business coach. So as a hobby, this is what I do. Like, I can never tell you how to wire a circuit like I was trying to do in college, but I know how people and organizations are wired. And so that's where I apply my engineering, and I apply it to people. So that's me in a nutshell.
Great, thank you, John. And we've talked a little bit early on here about, kind of the hashtag Keep Learning Strong. And with our guests, I always like to get their perspectives on, from where you sit and the people that you interact with. Tell us how Keep Learning Strong resonates with you and what it means to you in your world.
Yeah, it's amazing. And when I look at Keep Learning Strong, I just see so many things. One, I see continuous learning, which is the keep learning part. And Keep Learning Strong is, to me, just make it a muscle and make it purposeful and intentional. And this is the thing that we want to also give to other people, including, our greatest leaders and those emerging leaders and those leaders in transition, as well as our organization. And, if you continue to learn and make it purposeful and make it intentional, I think that then you can continue to grow and evolve, both as people and as organizations. And again, as I said earlier, when you stop learning, I think that's the first step to really dying versus living. And you see that present in organizations, when they don't have a learning environment, they continue to cycle and do what they've always done. And that will get you what you've always been. But if you venture to learn and you venture to make that part of the muscle of the organization, and you put people in place to lead that, and you put leaders in place to ensure that, I think you continue to grow, and you make the way for innovation. You make the way to enter into new environments, and you grow the organization, and you're able to scale the organization.
John, could you go a little further into that from the perspective of, given our current times and the issues that we're dealing with specifically around COVID, how has that impacted learning within your organization, not only from an organization perspective, but what do you see with regards to employees, and has anything changed with that group as well?
Yeah, a lot has changed. Thank you for that question, and it's a softball question because I've been, blessed to be on a team, a Tiger team that took a look at 10 steps past COVID and how the organization and how leaders would change, and we developed, a big white paper and a couple of presentations that we did to the executive team, and a few things that we found out. One in particular that I pointed out to the organization was when we merged with Tyco, we made popular this phrase, speed over elegance. And that was to push the organization to change and transform faster. And I said, in the midst of COVID, in the midst of all this uncertainty, and in the midst of this crisis, we have kind of built the muscle of speed over elegance. So now, where we used to see that as a novelty, that has to become the norm. And I equate that to what Microsoft has done. And when I was doing interviews with Microsoft and doing my research, one thing that I discovered was they said that they did 2 years of digital transformation in 2 months. And that was so crucial. So they leveraged the crisis, they learned on the fly, and they implemented on the fly, and they made their learnings part of normal capability. So when you come out of this, like, you should be running faster as an organization. We should be running faster as leaders, not faster in any direction, but faster and more focused. And that's what this crisis, in my mind, has taught us. And that's the skill and the capability and the new capacity that we as leaders and we as an organization have developed. And we have to commit to one thing that we were afraid of when we were talking to a good amount of internal leaders and external leaders, is that the things that we've learned during this crisis, we don't revert back to when we come out of this. And there could be a tendency to do that, for people to come back to their comfort zones, but we have to push the change and keep the change and reward and recognize for the new learning that we have and the changes that we've actually made.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Any common challenges that your leaders are approaching you with that you could share with us as well?
Yeah, I think one is how to lead and manage performance in a different way. One, you're leading more of a virtual workforce. And from a performance management standpoint, leaders are really now pressured to, they needed to do it all along. And I think it's a miss for many large and small corporations that so many leaders manage the tactical and manage duties versus managing outcomes and impact. And when you're doing that, you tend to micromanage, and you tend to play small ball, and you take your eye off of what the goal is constantly. We really need to switch that and say, what impact are we looking for from our leaders at every level? What impact are we trying to make to our customers? And how does that transform into what we do daily, what we start doing and what we stop doing? That's how we've had to transform. And it does not happen overnight. And it's been very hard because leaders, for the most part, again, have not been used to managing outcomes and impact. But that's something that we have to learn to do in this virtual environment to get things done, to meet our goals, and to advance the organization.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think that it's sped up the process of, some leaders that maybe weren't quite comfortable with managing virtually, and certainly, I think, opened their eyes a bit, hopefully in the positive sense that, coaching and managing can be done in a very productive way, virtually as well as face to face. So
That's
I
right.
certainly agree with you there. I'm going to go off script just a moment before I hand it over to Candace to take her turn at John. But John, can you share anything with us with regards to what's been the biggest surprise? Without putting a negative or a positive on it, but what's been the biggest surprise kind of coming through this COVID experience, and something that maybe you weren't expecting to see from it?
I think I can't say that I wasn't necessarily expecting to see it, but it was so highlighted during this pandemic, and I'd venture to say double pandemic, where you have COVID-19 and then you have social injustice as well, combined with that, and us having to deal with that as an organization. What's been highlighted in my mind is how I don't know if this is a word, but disunited we've been, and how we are not necessarily united as a people. We claim to be, but you know, us not wearing masks regularly, and us complaining about, you know, making policies and procedures and practices for the common good. That's just been it's been disheartening a bit, but it's also been a charge to say, how am I going to lead differently in this? And as I said before, full circle, you know, I'm an agitator and I will challenge people. So, you know, I do question people's practices and their actions, not only with respect to COVID-19, but, you know, in the social injustice area as well. I've been a part of many talks and I've shared my stories about things that have happened to me and my family and me as a kid and me as an adult. And those things help hopefully bring people together and challenge the way that they've been thinking, again, from a COVID-19 perspective, as well as from a social injustice perspective.
Yeah, and thank you for introducing that, John. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Candace. And Candace, it's all yours.
Yes, thanks, John. You've been giving some really great insights, and yeah.
Thank you so much.
Question is around distance learning. What do you think is successful distance learning from your perspective?
Wow. You know, immediately when you ask that question, it makes me think of what my son is going through. So Miles Christian is at home and he's 13 years old. And, you know, months ago, he started distance learning, and we've decided that we're going to keep him home when the school year starts, when, you know, our area is going back to school 5 days a week. And so he has to become proficient at that. So what it means is having courses and the work available digitally, having great connection, having learning that meets the needs and meets it at the pace that business is going. And if I, you know, equate it to Miles, have it at the pace that he should be learning at this time. And we have to dedicate places and spaces to learn and time to learn. Our employees have to do the very same thing. And just because we're reducing costs in some area, our business leaders still need to be trained. They still need to be enhanced. They still need to be developed. So learning cannot stop. So success means having the tools, having the time, having the investment, and making sure that we have the rigor and the capability to do it. And then reward and recognize our leaders for actually learning and applying the learning that they take advantage of. All those things have to be present to me to facilitate successful distance learning.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned, you know, learning cannot stop. I think a big part of why we started this campaign is because traditionally in times of scarcity, you see that, you know, learning budgets are cut. And when you mentioned, you know, the focus on outcomes and impact, and how that really helps with looking at a different way and a new approach to doing something, but those outcomes and those impacts still remain.
That's right. That's right. That's imperative. And we have, you know, a host of leaders and our learning organization that is still dedicated to, you know, meeting the needs of the business. We still have projections that we need to meet. We still have new customers and clients that we need to achieve. And it's going to take continued learning in order for us to be able to scale and also, you know, represent in this, you know, uncertain times. Like, we can't shrink. We have to enhance, you know?
Absolutely. I like that. So can you share advice that you have for business leaders and L&D leaders?
So L&D leaders in particular, I think the big bird word of the day is partnership. And see yourselves, we should see ourselves as partners to the business. You are a business partner with learning expertise. You know, I'm a business partner with HR expertise. So that means my focus is directed first on the needs of the customer, and then on the needs of the external customer, then on the needs of my internal customers, and then how can I develop solutions to meet those needs. And when I do that, when I have that mindset, when I have that consultative approach, then I'm developing solutions to enhance the company and to help it grow. Anything less than that is shrinking us and helping us die a quick death. And so making sure that the leaders are business partners. And from a business standpoint, I want us to continue investing in learning. You know, great companies and great leaders thrive in the time of chaos and uncertainty and in these times. And, you know, you see people still getting jobs. You see some companies continuing to thrive, although it's hit many large scale companies very hard. You know, it is possible to be successful in this season, in this, you know, state of affairs, but you have to be dedicated towards that and you have to invest in it. So that's what I would offer both my business leaders, the corporation, and our L&D leaders. Well said. Thank you.
And so looking at the skills, what have you been seeing in terms of trends? What do you think, what skills or competencies do you think need to be cultivated in the workforce today?
So certainly the number one thing that comes to mind is I'm kind of using this as a, you know, a word association thing. It's certainly flexibility, the ability to navigate organizations, the ability to navigate complex organizations, certainly entrepreneurial spirit, because we do have to continue to evolve. I think you have to not only develop your technical skills, but you also have to be focused on, you know, how your brand and how your image come across. I think we have to become more complete leaders and complete workers. It's no longer that just the technical skills are going to get it done. You have to know how to move in the face of customers. So we have to be building technical skills. At the same time, we have to be building what used to be called soft skills, but I'll call them essential skills. Mm-hmm. And we have to continue to work on those things to be complete and really meet our customers where they are, and usher them to where they need to be. And we also need to understand strategy, and we also need to understand how to take that strategy from paper, from brainstorming, from whiteboard to action. Those skills are invaluable. And then the last thing I would say is just coaching and advising, helping people navigate these different times, both organizationally and personally, have been so invaluable to me. And I've developed a new set of increased relationships from just being there and helping walk, you know, much senior leaders than myself through these times. So I think all of those things together are essential.
Great. And so what new insights and wisdom, and John, I know you have a lot of wisdom, have you gained from this year so far?
One, that it's uncertain, and I don't hold tomorrow, and I can't cry about, and I don't mean this harshly, but I can't cry about what happened in the past. I really have to stay present, you know, and one of the best books that I don't read business books for business. I read other types of books to help get business applications. So one of the most powerful books I ever read was The Power of Now. Mm-hmm. And if I had not read that book, I think I would be anxious for tomorrow. And I think I would be, you know, kind of in the middle of regretting, you know, what I had not done. But when I stay present, I can think clearly. Even in the midst of chaos, I can bring order to it. And I've also learned that life isn't promised. You know, through COVID, we've had a death in the family, in our close circle. And to have that and to not be able to touch your people, you have to find different ways to create presence. And in my mind, you know, leadership was needed during those times where we couldn't touch our loved one. Like we had to get on, I had to suggest us getting on a Zoom and getting on a conference call and having the nurses dress up in their garb and protect themselves, but also walk the phone into the room so that we could tell our loved one that we loved them before they passed on. You know, these things like ingenuity is also necessary in the midst of chaos. So the more I can enhance my faith and believe that I'm going to get through this in a better way, and my leaders are going to do the same. And the more I'm vocal about those things in the hard times, I think that has created a new set of skills and a new set of courage and faith that I have, that I've applied to, business and life. And I think some leaders have taken that on as well.
Yeah. Sorry to hear about your family member, John.
Yeah, thank you.
One of the things that is really important during this time is self-care. And it sounds like with your, reading of The Power of Now and your understanding, you have a pretty good grip on that. What have you been doing in terms of self-care during this time?
Trying to get better at caring for myself. And I'm not good at it. But what I have learned is, when I hear my family rumbling around upstairs and they have no respect and regard for the position that I hold, they just come in the camera and walk wherever they may. But when I hear them laughing, sometimes I try to go up and join the conversation. And, although I start my day at 4:45, I do try to take a break at noon and just, if I don't go out, I at least open the door so that I can smell the outside and catch a little bit of breeze. And, one thing is I'm more accessible via Teams and via Zoom, and that's been good. And I've actually been more productive, but it has me working longer hours. So normal 12 to 14 hour days can sometimes go to 16. So on a regular basis, I try to cut my day off and put the phone down and close the laptop and just go do something else, whether it's wiffle ball with Miles, have a conversation with wifey, or, a conversation with my mother-in-law, and just try to engage back into life as soon as possible in the day.
Great. Thank you.
Sure.
And just final words, how do you plan to keep learning strong?
That's a good one. I get the chance to support, in the structure that we have, our learning organization today sits under our global sales organization. And I think that's in the midst of transitioning and transforming. So keeping my partnership strong with that COE and suggesting ways that our L&D organization can further integrate with our business leaders, and to understand what the future holds for our businesses and their leaders, functional and operational, or P&L, and to start to develop solutions towards that. And then I will push leaders to continue to learn and continue to have, I just did a training session or a workshop on mentoring, coaching, and sponsorship. And I did it to 50 interns. So I have to continue to teach the new blood coming in, but also find a way to connect the new blood with our seasoned eagles, with our seasoned experts, and make sure that there's, lastly, a good transfer of knowledge between senior and emerging. And when I do that, I think I can pump the life's blood into the organization and keep it going. But when that's missing, again, I said it several times, I think we're on our way to dying, and that's just not a possibility. I just cannot let that happen. So I want to continue to keep that learning strong amongst our generations here in the organization.
Yeah, I like how you describe that. It's definitely given me a lot to think about in terms of mentorship and how that really does help to keep the organization alive.
Yeah, thank you.
So, John, we just want to thank you for taking the time to interview with us today. It's been extremely insightful, and I know that the viewers and those that will be listening to it, whether it's the podcast or the webinar mini-series, will get a lot out of it. So thank you again. And John, would you mind letting the viewers know how they can find you?
So I am on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. And so you can reach me in those places. Most viable is probably professionally LinkedIn. I'm on there all the time trying to help inspire other leaders. So please do not hesitate to reach out. Wherever I can be a need or of help, please ask. Because if you don't ask, you don't have. And so, before my time is up, I want to thank Candace, you and Roger again. You have been a tremendous blessing to my life and my family's, lives. And I'm not here without the both of you. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. It's not just inspirational speak. It is the absolute truth that I could prove. So thank you so much for everything. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you, John.
Thank you for that, John. And the picture up now reminds me that you pull off a bow tie better than any man I know, brother. So more power to you for that.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you, man. I'm so proud of your business insights and everything that you're doing. And I pray just blessings upon you that, you know, you scale to something unbelievable. And I just want to be on for the ride.
Awesome. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the time. It's been a wonderful, wonderful, 45 minutes here spent together, and look forward to more. So, Candace, do you want to take us through the closing, and we'll call it a wrap?
Yep. So just to reiterate what Roger shared in the beginning, we encourage you to share your story. You can follow us at #KeepLearningStrong on LinkedIn, Twitter, and we also have a page full of resources to keep you on the know, and you can check out other interviews with experts like John at that page at www.innovationsolutions.com/keeplearningstrong. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, everybody.